Peter Smith, director de Harbour y gestor, va a ser quien va a presentar ahora. Ha posicionado su fondo en el primer decil de resultados a 1 año, a 3 años, a 5 años. En cuanto a resultados, no le podrían haber salido mejor las cosas, como ya esperábamos. En cuanto a patrimonio, está creciendo mucho también el patrimonio del fondo, entonces de aquí en adelante también solo le pueden pasar cosas buenas a Peter y va a hacer una breve presentación hoy.
Great. Is this working? Excellent. Well, thank you very much for inviting me, Javier. I apologize, I'm going to do this in English. I married a Brazilian about 10 years ago, and my Espanol turned into Portuñol, and yeah, I'm not very good anymore. So yeah, my name is Peter Smith, and I'm the portfolio manager and managing partner of Palm Harbour Capital, which is, despite its name, a London-based asset manager. Founded in 2019. We run one single strategy. It is a small, mid-cap, global value strategy. We're focused on finding kind of off the beaten track and unique little companies, usually going through some sort of short-term headwind, and we just basically take a longer-term view than most of the market. So I'm the portfolio manager. I have one analyst working for me, Konstantinos, and we're backed by Francisco Garcia Paramez, his holding company, Santa Comba, as our partner. And I guess it's a little unfair, his wife is actually also a partner, but I don't have a picture of her. So some people ask, why is there this American guy working in London on basically an ex-US fund with a Spanish backer? So I guess a little history. I grew up in Dallas, Texas. I went to high school and took 2 interesting classes. One was economics, which we learned about compound interest. And as Albert Einstein said, it's one of the wonders of the world, and I kind of fell in love with the idea of saving and compounding. The second class was a European history class, and I realized I was not very well traveled and I wanted to see the world. So at the time I was playing an online video game, and I bought and sold castles online. Now this was 25 years ago, so Mark Zuckerberg with the metaverse a couple years ago, I don't know. It's been around for a while. Made some money doing that, and I backpacked around Europe, decided to learn German. I studied abroad in Germany for a year, did an internship in the Philippines, and then when I was graduating and started getting a job at an oil company in Texas in finance, I decided to move to Frankfurt and try to get a job at a bank. Did get a job at a bank, started off in interest rate and currency derivatives, which was horrible, and quickly moved myself to the equity desk. I then realized that in Europe, pre-Brexit, London was the place to be, and I relocated to London with the bank, and I worked at the European equity desk there for about 4 years. While I was there, I kind of got disillusioned with the whole banking. Obviously, the financial crisis occurred, but it was just basically too many conflicts of interest, nothing to do with investing, short-termism, so I wanted to move to the buy side. So I pursued the CFA. Financial crisis, though, very limited jobs, so I decided to go to business school. I chose London Business School because they had a value investing program there, taught by someone who had gone to Columbia and then taught at Columbia, named Eddie Ramsden. And that was a fantastic class and really just changed my entire outlook of investing. So while I was at business school, I read every single book on investing, and I found what I wanted to do, my philosophy, value investing, my process, and dug into it. Now, Eddie, he had been seeded into business without any track record by Joel Greenblatt, a very famous American value investor. And I thought, that sounds really amazing. At the time, I was applying for jobs at all the big asset managers, and I kind of felt it was very much like the banks. They were very bureaucratic, HR department stuff, and they were basically asset gatherers and didn't really care about performance. So I wanted to work for a boutique. I wanted to do things differently, and I wanted to focus on performance. So I tried to start my own fund following what Eddie had done. I went to family offices. I tried to write letters to all the famous investors, and I didn't get very far. I had no track record, and nobody knew who the heck I was. But one of my colleagues at London Business School said, hey, I see how much passionate you are about this and what you're doing. Like, I think I can get you a coffee with a guy. And I was like, oh, who's that? He said, Francisco Garcia Paramez. And I was like, the most famous guy, investor in value in Spain. He said, yeah. So I managed to get a coffee with him. I pitched him a couple of stocks. And then I basically said, you should give me some money to start a fund with. Now, being a nice Spanish gentleman, he didn't laugh directly in my face. But yeah, he was like, I don't know who you are, so why would I do that? But I stayed in contact with him. I sent him ideas. I went and got a job at a hedge fund, and I did that for a couple years. And I met him a few times for coffees, and we talked for hours and hours and hours on end about companies and stocks. He's the only person who really could just literally go endlessly talking about stocks with me. And so when he went and started Cobus, he invited me to come to Madrid, and he said, hey, I want you to be an analyst. And I said, I don't want to be your analyst. I want you to give me money to start a fund with. And then he said, okay, look, let's work together for a little bit, and maybe I'll help you out. So that's what happened. I worked for 2 years running a paper portfolio for him. And then in 2019, right after small mid-caps did a gigantic 30% move, I launched my fund. So it's been running for about 6 years now. We're doing a little over 10% CAGR in that time, with basically no US exposure. So small caps out of favor, international stocks out of favor, and value out of favor. But as you can see, I have a rather eclectic portfolio with a lot of names that most people don't know, like Cuckoo and San Miguel and these kind of things. So what are we? Value investing means a lot of things to a lot of different people. It's not like I don't buy growth or I don't like growth. I just don't want to pay a lot for it because I think people overpay for growth. So I try to buy companies that grow when people think they're not going to grow. So we basically, try to think like business owners. We focus on competition, and we do deep research. We talk to the competitors, we talk to the suppliers, the customers, and we try to understand the microeconomics of a business. And we think that gives us an edge, especially in small mid-caps where there's very little sell-side coverage, and we're also in geographies where there's not good English disclosures and the lack of it. We basically break down our portfolio into 3 kind of buckets. So we have high-quality compounders. These are companies with great market shares, high returns on tangible capital, high margins, great management teams, reinvestment opportunities at high rates of return. But these things usually aren't very cheap, or at least not cheap enough for me. So we have to buy these when there's something happening. When COVID happens, we could buy MTU Aero Engines, a fantastic company in aerospace. Everything thinks we're never going to fly again, but you can buy high-quality aircraft engine manufacturer. Or the European energy crisis, we could buy Veralia, a glass manufacturer, when everybody says energy is going to stay up forever and these guys don't have pricing power, and actually they did have pricing power and were able to have some of the best years in their existence during that time. And now we have tariffs. Our portfolio had almost nothing to do with tariffs except for maybe some currency movements. We have very little exposure to anything related to that except for maybe if there's a global crisis of some sort that happens after this, but we'll see. But we added tariff exposure. We bought Watches of Switzerland, which has about half of their business in the US, and the stock was completely beaten up. But at the end of the day, they sell Rolexes and Patek Philippe's, and they're like wait lists for 18 months or more. And the average price is over 10,000 euros. I think if you're on a wait list, buying a 10,000 euro watch, if they raise prices by 5 or 10%, that's not going to be a big deal. Also, I don't think I took the view long ago at the beginning that this was all negotiating tactics by Trump, and he only had a couple. There's only 18 months for the next election. He can't have the stock market down massively. He can't have the bond market completely out of line. He only has a very short window to do the damage he's doing. So we were able to buy Watches of Switzerland. So that's the first bucket, these high-quality kind of things. We buy them while there's something happening. The second is special situations. I love spin-offs. You have a large company divesting a small thing, all the large cap funds, all the index funds all spit it out. And then you get to have the management actually focus on one business, and maybe there's capital starved in part of a larger conglomerate or something, and then they get to run the business. So we have lots of spin-offs. We also do balance sheet restructurings, divestitures, and things where the business is changing and value is being released in our view. So an example of this would be Telekom Austria, which I'll talk about maybe later, or Solvay, where you're separating businesses and creating value that way. And then the third bucket is just things that are just too cheap to ignore. But at that same time, I want to buy something that's kind of special. So while I own an oil company, but I own an oil company which has gas and pipelines going to Europe, and Europe is structurally short gas. So I think that's a strategic asset. It's not just an oil play. Or it could be a company like Norma, where you have kind of a hidden jewel business within the business that's worth the entire market cap or EV of the company. So you're getting the rest of the business for free while they're trying to turn it around and restructure that part of the business. So yeah, those are our 3 buckets. I could run through a few more ideas with that. But basically, we value everything on free cash flow. We think cash is king, as they say. We don't believe in all the made-up metrics that everybody comes up with, and we definitely don't even value things on free cash flow 10 or 20 years in the future where people try to tell us what's happening. We like to see cash, we like to see it now, and people say, oh, wait, you buy value traps or whatever, and value traps is you're just wrong and it's not value at all, so calling it a value trap is silly. If it's producing a lot of cash, good things are going to happen to it. End of the line. Like people say, oh, but this might underperform for 3 or 4 years. Maybe it'll underperform for 3 or 4 years, but if it's actually producing a lot of cash, it has options. It can do strategic M&A, it can raise the dividend, it can buy back shares, or a strategic buyer is interested, PE is interested. Something happens. We own a lot of family-run companies. The next generation comes in and wants change. I mean, there's going to be something that happens, and so I don't believe in this whole concept that value underperforms, there's value traps. So yeah, I was just running through a few ideas. Like Telekom Austria is still in our portfolio. We thought this was an actually growing telco. Most telcos in Europe don't grow. It was knocked down because it had exposure to 10% of its EBITDA was coming from Belarus. And so the stock wasn't performing well. It's 60% owned by Carlos Slim, and so a lot of people didn't like that. I actually like it. He's created a lot of wealth over his time, and I think he knows how to run a telco. And basically, they spun off the tower business, so that's not captured in this graph, but there's actually another company, a company that's also doing extremely well called Eurotelesites. And basically, they completely delevered their balance sheet. So you have a telco that's actually growing that has zero net financial debt. So we think it has a lot of optionality. They've been raising the dividend, but we think they could even buy back half their shares, do a dividend recap for half the market cap, and relever themselves less than 2 times doing that. So there's lots of optionalities, and we still like it, and maybe one day the war in Ukraine will end and Belarus telco might be worth something, so added kicker. Lottomatica is just we owned the predecessor company to this called GameNet. It got bought by PE by Apollo. They then merged it with IGT's Lottomatica business and then IPO'd it. People were like, oh, we don't want to buy from PE. But actually, this is just a fantastic company and has done fantastically well, as you can see. And basically, the opportunity was that people don't want to buy from PE. But if the PE is smart, they sold it to us at a great valuation. And they've been slowly selling shares since then. But as you can see, the fundamentals of the business just override any of the stock overhang issue. MTU Aero, we already discussed. You could buy that during COVID. Avid Technologies, people say there's no value in tech. I owned a US tech company, doing a software company, and that did fantastically well and got bought. It basically had really bad accounting, and people couldn't see it. But if you looked at the cash flows and ignored the actual accounting metrics and looked at what the cash was doing, it was a screaming buy. So yeah, and then here's another example of one that just has a strategic asset. This is a hotel company that owned property in Barbados on the beach. It's something you just can't replicate. And so it was trading at a 15% free cash flow yield and owned all of its own property, on beachfront property that, like I said, you just can't replicate. And Marriott bought them at a massive premium. So basically, yeah, that's it. So it's a single strategy, small mid-cap, global value, focus on absolute returns, no benchmark. We're just looking for good ideas. Last I checked, you can't buy a house under outperforming a benchmark. You need to make real returns. So I'm targeting a 15% CAGR, underperforming a bit at the moment, just with my 10.5 or so. That's the goal. And yeah, we eat our own cooking. I have all my money in the fund. Everybody who works for me has money in the fund. Francisco Garcia Paramez has a large investment in the fund as well. It's actually still the largest investor in the fund. So that's it. So thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.